Okay, so you're going to want to power on the board. You're going to wait for it to boot up. You're going to hit the delete button. Make sure you go into the BIOS settings. Now, first thing you're going to want to do is update it. It's outdated. You have to update it. Go ahead and hit the advanced mode right here. Then go up there and hit the tools. Now in tools, you're going to want to hit Asus Easy Flash 3 utility. Make sure you do not select this option, select via internet. And then go ahead and hit the next button. Once again, make sure it's DHCP protocol and hit the next button. It might freeze on you, it might not. It might restart on you, it might not. If it restarts on you and asks you again, once again, make sure you're selecting via internet and then hit OK until you get to this screen. It's going to tell you this is the latest software. Are you sure? Yep. It's going to freeze. It's going to start downloading. It's going to bring you up to a new screen when it starts downloading, and you're going to hit yes one more time. You're going to have a little progress bar on the bottom. That's not really fancy. And once that's done, your system should restart itself automatically. Now once it's done, we're still not done with the software of the BIOS modification for mining purposes. We still have a lot of stuff to do. Alright, so the system is finally restarting. It should automatically come back into the BIOS menu, but if it doesn't, go ahead and restart it again and go back into the BIOS menu for the modifications for mining. Okay, so here it's telling us that it did an update and it wants us to go into the BIOS to finalize the update. You're going to I hit F1. And we're good. Okay, so this is all for the BIOS update. Now what we have to do is set this board up for mining purposes. So for mining purposes, we're gonna go right into advanced mode again. Now I'm gonna take this a little bit slowly. I'm gonna go through every single little tab here so you guys can see. If yours looks different, you have to adjust it. If it doesn't, then you're good. So this one, don't touch it again. If you touch it again, you're gonna have to restart the computer. Now, if you have any graphic cards installed already, you will see them right here. So we're gonna hit the back button again here. Now we're not gonna do any overclocking. We don't need any of that stuff for mining. We're gonna go to boot. Fast boot enabled. Next boot after power loss is gonna be fast boot. Boot configuration, you don't need to touch that. The compatibility is to be left alone. The secure boot is to be left alone as well. Pretty much all of this you gotta leave except the top two. You gotta make sure it's enabled and it's a fast boot. Go ahead and hit the advanced tab. Platform miscellaneous configurations. You're gonna leave all of these stock. CPU configuration, you're gonna also leave stock. System agent configuration. This is very, very important. VT-4 is disabled. Above 4G decoding, this is where the magic starts. Above 4G decoding has to be enabled. Now you're gonna go into graphic configuration, and you're gonna make sure the primary display is automatic, so it'll detect whether or not you're running a graphic card or you're just running the display off the board. Now if you are running a graphic card, make sure your HDMI cable is plugged into the first card. So the first card is PCIe 16_1. So whatever you plug into there is where your HDMI cable has to go. Now we don't need to do anything else here. The DMI configuration. Okay, so DMI configuration, the speed for the link, it's got to be Gen 2, not Gen 3, not auto, Gen 2. The port configuration for both of them, Gen 2 and Gen 2. Now the memory configuration, you're going to leave enabled. There's nothing else for you to touch in this menu. You're going to go back. PCH configuration, you're going to go into PCIe Express configuration, which is all the rest of them. You're going to hit Gen 2, so that's the rest of those little slots you got there. Make sure it's enabled and back out of it. Storage configuration, you do not need to do anything here. Don't mess with it. You will have a nightmare if you don't know what you're doing. PCH configuration, don't know what that is, leave it alone. Thunderbolt, leave it alone. Onboard device configuration. Now I like to disable the high definition audio controller so it doesn't give me any headaches later. The M.2, we won't touch that for now. You can change it to a 4 to enable them to work a little bit better if you're going to expand the board to 9 cards. Now RGB lights, which is the lights you have on the back of the board, on a personal reference, I like it that when the system is on, they are on. When the system is off, it's kind of like an indicator that there's an issue we have to take care of. So go ahead and switch that to off. Okay, now we're gonna back out of here. We're gonna go to APM configuration. So restore AC power loss on power. So when the power goes out, what do you want your computer to do when the power comes back on? Do not do the last state because it might not save that it was on. So always select the power on option. So basically, your power cuts out, your power comes back on, your mining rig will power automatically back on. So you don't have to worry about that. Network stack, leave it alone. All of this, leave it alone. USB configuration, leave that alone as well. Now, the AI tweaker, there was another setting here, if I could remember where it was. It's not very important, but it was more so just easier to deal with later. I think it was in the boot. Sorry guys. Okay, so there it is. So you're gonna have to go to boot configuration, and where it says setup mode, you're gonna want to change that to advanced mode. Also, just a personal preference. So now your board is set up to accept all the PCIe slots. You can put a riser into every single one of them, and pop your GPUs into them, and it should work out. So don't forget, hit the F10 button. It's going to verify that you want to do all of these things. So once again, this is where we changed it for decoding, and everything goes to Gen 2. That's the main things. The rest is just personal preferences and ease of use. You're going to hit OK. Your computer will restart and you should boot back into Windows. And that is all for setting up and updating your BIOS on the Z270 or the Z370 for mining purposes. Yeah, computer's back on, and that will be all for now.